So it really is my sincere pleasure to introduce Judge Peter Sakai. He's just a great guy. He does a phenomenal job as the county judge. He's over all the county commissioners. And since we live in the county, he's decided that he's going to give us $100,000.
Nothing's free around
No,
here.
there's nothing free. Your Honor, why don't you come up and share some wisdom with us? Thank you so much. Judge Peter Sakai, please.
Well, good afternoon. Oh, no, let's do a little better job on that. Good afternoon. Well, thank you for inviting me to speak today. I have to tell you, it is really a treat. Even though I've been working in government, so to speak, for many, many years, I think and as we know in here in Bexar County, it is really such a huge community. But at the same time, today I'm really amazed and surprised, and I'll tell you why. And I always feel like it's God's blessing of why I'm given the opportunity to serve as your county judge, but also to be invited today to the Army Residence Community, the ARC, because I'll be real blunt. Didn't know y'all were here. Y'all are just a hidden jewel here. And, I was like, wow, this is really a nice place. I am familiar more with some of the other retirement facilities, Air Force Village, the Tower. There's a few others out there. But, and then I had the privilege there to sit at the table with David Rossa. Can we give David a round of applause for all the hard work he does? Yeah. I got to sit with a General Klein. Thank you for your service. He was stationed there in Japan, so we had some stories about his tour of duty in Japan and then my connections there with my family. Both sets of my grandparents immigrated back in the early 1900s from Japan and located ultimately in South Texas. As you heard, on my mother's side, my mother's side went to the valley, Rio Grande Valley. I'm born and raised down in McAllen, and there were farmers. And so then my dad's side, as you heard, was on the West Coast during the outbreak of World War II, and so under Executive Order 9066, with the order of the Japanese Americans into internment camps, my family was caught, my father's side was caught there, and then obviously he did serve in the U.S. Army, was part of the occupational force in Japan because he could speak Japanese, and so he was there. I think he said he did his 2 years and got the heck out of there, and then came back and then relocated and went to South Texas to go down and farm. And so a lot of people don't realize I'm an old farm boy. And so I know what it is to get your butt kicked out of bed in the sunrise and then stay to sunset working and then doing that sometimes 7 days a week. And that's what my dad did for many, many years. So what did I learn from that? I said, I ain't doing this for a living. And obviously, as all our parents did, go get an education. And so I did get an education, and by the grace of God, I just somehow did well in school and somehow made it through law school, and then came here. My first job was to be an assistant district attorney with Bexar County back in 1980. And then I was fortunate to be in private practice, and then became an associate judge of the nationally renowned Children's Court, and worked on child advocacy, and that's where my crossing the paths with Tom McGuire, who worked for Kramkowski for many years, and his child advocacy, especially for foster kids. Tom will tell you he grew up as a foster kid, and he was really one of the very fortunate ones, right, Tom? You were able to make it out of there, and I'm sure he has a story to tell, but by the grace of God, he was able to have somebody connect with him, I assume, a foster parent who took care of him and guided him, and he's now where he's at now, chair of your board. Also met the Coy family and understand, we've got some connection. They're from their Cuban American background. My wife is Hispanic, and my maternal side on my wife's side is from Mexico City. So we had shared some stories about speaking Spanish and what that means. So, you know, this is a wonderful, I don't know if it was Sharon, the same Sharon I've met. Yeah, there you are. She was counselor there at Judson School District at Kirby Elementary School, and she says, I was in your court. Now, let me clarify, she wasn't in trouble. She wasn't there for anything she did. She was there because obviously a family fell into the children's court for abuse and neglect allegations, and so she thanked me for my service, and especially in regards to the case that she was involved with, because I basically at that time, when I first started, I was pretty hard on those parents. I would demand accountability and demand that they take care of the kids, especially if they wanted them back. And then obviously, and that's where Tom and I later connected with his term with Kronkowski, is because, as you know, and I can spend all day talking about foster care and what we need to do for those abused and neglected children. But, you know, unfortunately, we have a foster care system that's broken, and we continue to try to work on that foster care, but it requires all of us as a community in order to help those foster kids, especially those that have been abused and neglected. But I'm here as your county judge. I spent 26 years on the district court bench, children's court, 25th district court is four terms of office. And then I had that opportunity to retire and just kind of sit back and go to senior status and hear cases, but didn't want to do that for some reason. So the opportunity came when Judge Nelson Wolf, my predecessor, decided that he wasn't going to run again. And I decided, well, you know what, I'm still not finished yet. And what else can I do for my community? So as your servant leader, I bring that perspective of what can we do for our community, especially for the least of us. And that specifically deals with the children and families that I work with in the courts and now as county judge. And that's kind of my North Star, so to speak, is what can we do for the least of us. I'm gonna ask Keith, because, and David, thank you for the opportunity. Kind of goes, well, you got a whole, you know, I don't know the time. What's my time? He's been very good about.
You got about 20 minutes or so.
20 minutes. So I want to be mindful, and you know, and if you all have any Q&A, question and answer, we can easily get this thing to question and answer to answer any question. But I wanted to give a shout out to Keith Wilson, our director of the Military and Veterans Office. I think I heard that Keith's been out here. But I was going to go over some of the things that the Military and Veterans Service Department does. I will say this, the department really has evolved and I think has grown and has really done a much better effective outreach. And I think that's because of the leadership of Keith and also because of the direction of the court. So Keith, can you quickly kind of just give the highlights of what you've done? And one of the things that Keith brought to my attention was that we have a ceremony for what we call the unaccompanied Veterans Memorial. Those that have been buried there at Fort Sam but had no family, correct? And really had no recognition. And so with Keith's leadership, we have, I believe on a quarterly basis or biannual basis, we have a ceremony for those unaccompanied veterans. So that's a recognition of what Bexar County is doing for our vets. So Keith, I'll give you a few minutes.
Okay, thank you, sir. Hey, like you said, my name is Keith Wilson. I'm a retired soldier. I'm a native Texan, and I'm the Director of Veteran Services for Bexar County. So it's an honor to be out here talking to you all today. I do want to kind of get a sense, I like to get a sense of kind of the room in the audience. So how many veterans or spouses of the Space Force? Okay, that's what I thought. Relatively new. Okay, how about Air Force? Veterans and or spouses of the Air Force? Big presence. Okay. How about veterans and or spouses of the Navy? Smaller contingent, but well represented. Okay. How about veterans and spouses of the Marine Corps? Also small. Okay, and then the service that actually has more aircraft than the Air Force, more boats than the Navy, and actually led the world's largest amphibious assault, the United States Army, veterans and spouses. Okay, good showing. And then, last but certainly not least, the United States Coast Guard. Not a one? Okay, just not here. Okay. So hey, I appreciate it. And one of the things that I like to talk about is what our department does. So you may not realize it, but Bexar County has the 5th largest population for veterans in the country, the 162,000 veterans. We have the largest population in Texas for veterans. We just surpassed Harris County. And we have the 2nd largest active military presence outside of the National Capital Region here with Joint Base San Antonio, with over 80,000 active service members and their families. So when they talk about Military City USA, and our county leaders like to talk about Military County USA, it's no joke and it's not hyperbole, it's true. So some of the services and resources that we provide, and I know it's probably of utmost interest to everyone in here, employment services. So if anyone's looking for a job, we can help. Okay, maybe not the right audience. The second, and by statute we're required to do, and frankly where we see our most work, is VA disability claims. Now when we talk disability, and we had a meeting over at the other residence community on the other side of town, Blue Skies, right? Another great facility. One of the ladies she took umbrage to the fact that we were calling it a disability claim. She's like, I'm not disabled, I'm fully functional. And so what I try to explain to folks is there's a lot behind it and legalese that I don't want to get into, but by being a disability benefit, the federal government doesn't tax it, right? If it was a compensation, then the federal government would tax it. Now that oversimplifies it, I get it, I'm an Army tanker, not a legal expert or an accounting expert. But that's the basic of it, right? It's compensating individuals for what they put their bodies through in service to our country. So think of it that way. The other that we often hear, and frankly from a lot of our older veterans, is I don't want to take a benefit away from someone who deserves it more. And we see a lot of these young men and women that come back with serious bodily harm, oftentimes missing limbs, serious burns, and they feel like they're going to take a benefit away from someone else. The VA is not a zero-sum game. Every benefit that everyone deserves, they get. And it is not connected to whether or not someone else gets that. So I bring that up because there are people that are frankly leaving money and benefits on the table that they have earned. Here's the other piece. A lot of surviving spouses are entitled to benefits that they had zero idea that they were entitled to. I've dedicated one staff member whose focus is on family benefits. We helped a lady whose husband was denied benefits over 25 years ago based on the PACT Act, which I won't get into a lot of, but it's tied towards Agent Orange, burn pits, airborne contaminants. That became a presumptive condition because her husband served in Vietnam. So that claim that was denied 25 years ago, they went back and said we should have approved it, and they did. And so she got 25 plus years of compensation back, which was almost $500,000. She was 92 years old, had children, grandchildren, and great children. And so you talk about the impact that the department can have, that our community has, it's like that, okay? And so we came out here about a month and a half or so ago, had a team come out, we set up over here, we had some, we call it intake. Basically sit down and talk with folks, listen to your case, your situation, circumstances, and then we set up appointments for the following week. We did about 36 claims just a couple months ago. We're coming back on the 3rd to do the same, the intake folks. We're working with the, I believe it's resident services team, and I don't remember her name, I'm sorry, but that group over there. So we're coming out on the 3rd, and that'll be the intake where there's some questions, etc. I'll give you some ideas on documentation that we need. And then the following week on the 10th, we'll be out to help sit down and work with you through claims. We had, I think, 5 veteran service officers set up here in the friendship room processing claims for surviving spouses and veterans. And so we're going to continue to come out here as frequently as we need to, and then we'll be on a recurrent basis because we know there are new residents that come in. Then the last thing that I would say specific to veterans and claims, and I talked to an individual, and I won't get into details because I didn't ask him to, but he filed a claim in early 2000 as a veteran. And so what I asked him was, have your conditions improved in those last 25 years, right? Of course not, right? So your hip still hurts, your shoulder still hurts, your range of motion is probably more limited, your strength is probably limited. And if we can connect that back to your injury, your condition, then the VA will increase your benefits. So just because you may have filed 10, 15, 20 years ago, don't assume that that's it. Now, 100%, we can give 110% in energy and effort, but the VA doesn't give 110% in benefits. So if you're at 100%, there's oftentimes not an advantage to adding a claim unless there's a possibility that you could pass from that condition and it's not previously recorded. Because if you pass from a service-connected injury, illness, etc., it increases the benefits in particular that your family's entitled to. We want to make sure you get that. So we'll be out here in a few weeks. I'll be back in the back to answer some questions if you have them, but truly appreciate what y'all do. The judge mentioned the unaccompanied memorial service. I first learned about it, and Judge said, you know, he new to this this facility. I learned about it from General Freddie McFerrin, who's a resident. Freddie McFerrin was my commandant when I was at West Point, right? And he was known for two things. He said West Point's a party school, which if you've ever been, is probably the 180-degree opposite of what West Point is. And then his big red muscle car that I understand he still has and drives around. So he told me about the community, which allowed us to connect to the leadership to come out here and provide the services, and we'll continue to do that. As the judge mentioned, every quarter we have an unaccompanied memorial service to honor those veterans from our community who pass with no known family member or next of kin, to show that even though they may have no family, they still have brothers and sisters that will stand with them to honor and recognize them in their passing. We have one tomorrow at 9 a.m. I know some folks come out. I will work with the team here to maybe see about organizing something more formal for future ones to try to get at least the availability for y'all to come out and participate. It is a very special, moving moment. Tomorrow we have 10 veterans that are being recognized who passed from 1 October to 31 December. Of those 10, 1 is a Korean War veteran, 5 are Vietnam veterans, 1 is a Persian Gulf War veteran, and then the others did not serve in combat, but they stood ready to answer the call if they were called upon. And so we will honor them at 9 a.m. tomorrow. We have the director of the Texas Veterans Commission coming in as our guest speaker. The judge was last time. And so if you're able to go, we'd love to have you. If not, we'll work to make sure that y'all know about it in the future when we have those. So I'll be in the back if you have questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Keith.
By the way, Felicia just told me the information about tomorrow is on the bulletin board already. So if you're interested, look at that, and you'll be able to find out what's going on.
Thank you, Keith. I wouldn't have done the justice that Keith just gave you all the information and valuable information that y'all may need for yourselves, for other veterans, and just being able to share the fact. And let me use this quote in my notes, in the words of the political scientist Dan Lipinski. Quote, "On the battlefield, the military pledges to leave no soldier behind. As a nation, let it be our pledge that when they return home, we leave no veteran behind." And that also includes Bexar County. And so long I'm Bexar County judge, I will leave no veteran behind. And those are the small ways that we can repay for their debt of service and their sacrifice. And so I want to extend that to all of you as to whatever services Bexar County can do. Please be connected with Keith and his staff. I believe, Keith, we've committed the resources that you need. Last time I checked, you got a vehicle that we kind of, I want to watch that word, but it's all decaled with your veteran services, right? You kind of.
We got a mobile billboard.
Mobile billboard. And so, yeah, it's out there. Is it out there in front? So if you want to see what the county done to give him his ride, so to speak, yeah, y'all can see what we gave him. So let me kind of shift a bit. David asked me to say, well, you know, where do you want to go? And so I said, wherever y'all, this is an area where we could go to Q&A or address any issues, but let me one of the topics, or one of the things I thought perhaps, there's always a lot of confusion between the county and the city, and well, y'all do this and what they do that, and and then sometimes, as some of the things that are going on now, the city and the county do their very best to try to work together. So let me lay what the law is, so to speak, so that y'all can help understand what the county does. The county, by statute and actually by constitution, was created when they created the state of Texas, and created the Constitution for the state of Texas. So the county government is an extension of the state of Texas. And that distinction is important because we only do what the state allows us to do, meaning the legislature there in Austin. We can get into debates of what they do in Austin and the decisions they make there. But the bottom line is, as opposed to the city, especially, and I'll just, it's not to call them out for any particular reason, but the city of San Antonio, because there's, everybody thinks there's this overlap, and there really isn't. And the city of San Antonio is called a home rule city. And so they're created by city charter. And so they can do whatever their city charter allows them to do. So for purposes of trying to say, well, what does that mean? City of San Antonio can maybe get into issues or express issues that perhaps the county is not going to necessarily weigh in, especially what I call maybe social issues, political issues. We basically, the county, in history, and understand that back when it first started, county government, 254 counties were created at the time, and it was the intent of the founding fathers at that time that the local government, the county government, would run the state of Texas. There was no really centralized, there was no metropolitan areas, there were no city of San Antonio, city of Houston, city of Dallas. You basically had, 254 counties, rural in nature, and they were run by the county judge. There's a bit of a misnomer. As county judge, I'm not the judge that I was when I was in the court judge, either the 225th District Court or the Children's Court. Those are court of law type judges. County judge is a chief executive officer, so to speak. I'm one of 5 people. I have 4 county commissioners. Commissioner 1, which is Commissioner Rebecca Clay Flores. Commissioner 2 is Commissioner Justin Rodriguez. And I'll just say, generally speaking, Commissioner Clay Flores is southwest. Commissioner Rodriguez is west side out to the northwest. Commissioner 3 is Commissioner Grant Moody, which is the north side. And then Commissioner 4, which I believe is where y'all are at, that's Commissioner Tommy Calvert, which is primarily the east side. And we as 5 elected officials make the decisions in order for what is Bexar County, what support we give military and veteran services. What do we do in regards to the jail? What do we do in regards to the courts? We're also part of, as county judge, there are elected officials of the county. That's why you'll see the sheriff running for office. You'll see the judges, both district court and county courts at law, which are the 2 levels of trial courts, running for judges. You'll see the tax assessor collector. You'll see a district clerk. You'll see a county clerk, because when they set it up, that's who ran the county. So now that you have a city of San Antonio metropolitan, they have obviously a mayor and city council districts. Obviously, I believe you're kind of in the middle of Converse and Universal City, and so y'all are around the smaller suburban cities who have jurisdiction. It's my understanding y'all are totally well within the jurisdiction of the county, so you have to rely on our sheriff and the sheriff's deputies to provide you law enforcement protection. I'm sure we have what's called an ESD, Emergency Service District, that kind of took over for we used to have the volunteer fire departments, but we now have emergency service ESDs that provide the emergency fire and ambulance services for out here. So I give you a primer to kind of help you understand that you may say, well, why isn't it all wrapped in together? And that's because county government is an extension of the state. The city is its own, just as city of San Antonio, city of Converse, the 26 suburban cities are all separate entities. So those suburban cities don't answer up to the city of San Antonio, all right? What happens politically and at times is the mayor and I do our very best to work together, but at the same time, understand that the city and county don't always go in line with each other because of the interest. I have to protect the county taxpayers and the money that county taxpayers use. Obviously, the city will do so, city of San Antonio will do so for its city residents. So there are some areas where we do kind of join together. I think we do our very best to work together on and I'm looking at Jim, the library system. We try to partner up. We do partner up on some metropolitan health district issues. But we have learned over the time that sometimes the county has really, and I have to give credit to Judge Wolf and the predecessor court, during COVID, the pandemic, the county is really what stepped up. And I don't know if y'all recall, but the county wrapped up with over at what they call Wonderland Mall, and had services in partnership with University Health System, which is a county entity. It's its own separate governmental body, but it is an extension of the county. They also set up at the Freeman Coliseum and Frost Bank Center. That's all county property. And so they were running those medical services during the pandemic, and I think they really, really did well. And so the county has always been able to provide direct services and whatnot, but we do our very best to try to coordinate with the city of San Antonio. So I'm hoping I kind of gave you a real rough overview of city-county government. Let me kind of shift now as county judge. One of the things that I ran on ran 2 years ago when Judge Wolf stepped down, was I wanted to focus in on basic services. I ran on public safety, ran on public health, ran on economic development. So within these last 2 years, if y'all pay attention either to our Commissioners Court meeting, I think we're on the public access channel, we're about second, fourth Thursday, I believe, or first and third, I always forget which particular Tuesday, not Thursdays, Tuesdays, we run our Commissioners Court. You can observe and watch what we do in action, so to speak, from the Commissioners Court. But what we did in the last 2 years is really focus in on the law enforcement side. If y'all pay attention, we have now, in the first year, we added over 50 deputies to the Sheriff's Department in order that they could help outreach, especially the unincorporated areas as we go further out. We know that we got some areas in town that are exploding in growth, especially if you go to the far west, southwest along Highway 90. That area, as you go into Medina County, is exploding in growth. And so the sheriff has had to increase his capacity. This past year, we added, Jim, how many more did we add? Another 40, another 50 more. So in the last 2 years, we've added another 100 deputies. We also made a commitment to support our constables, and constables are the elected officials that work with the Justice of Peace. The Justice of Peace courts are the lowest level of trial courts. Those are the small claims courts. Those are the traffic tickets court that are in the county. And so we have also added constable deputies there in order to increase the capacity for public safety. So those are some of the initiatives that I ran on and I have fulfilled in trying to make sure that our community is a safer place. Also too, we committed to public health. And in public health, and I gotta give credit to Judge Wolf and President Court, they made this decision, but we've actually executed it while I was county judge. We created a public health department, and that was as a result of the pandemic and the issues there, that even though we do have a metropolitan health district, which is a partnership with the city and county, we felt it was important that we have a county public health department that is also focused with mental health. And one of the reasons being is, as I just mentioned, the growth of the county, especially on the edges, especially on that southwest corridor. We're now starting to see the movement far south, which is where Toyota and those manufacturing plants, that is exploded. If you have the opportunity, you just kind of drive through on Highway 16, Czars of More, as if outside 410, inside 1604, you're gonna see explosion of growth with those manufacturing plants. Obviously, Toyota was a game changer over 20 years ago, and now we've got additional manufacturing industries coming in there. You're gonna start seeing growth to the southeast, because I think that's the other area that really has not been untapped. And then obviously the northeast corridor, which y'all are all part of, which is, y'all are affected by that IH-35 and the, what they call the interstate, double-deck highway system, which is, if you got complaints with that, go call TxDOT. Which is why I'm chairman of that, you can tell them, fix that highway system. But when it's all said and done, and you know that TxDOT has been really focused on that 1604 corridor from 35 all the way to 10 and down to 90. So one of these days, all those highways are gonna be done. My concern is, and I'll share this with you, as soon as those highways are done, they're gonna be outdated, so to speak. There'll still be congestion. We'll still have to figure out how we need to move people up and down the interstate corridor. We know that Henry Cisneros, our former mayor, former secretary of HUD, has written about the mega metropolitan, which is the Austin, San Antonio. I'll touch base on that in regards to my conversations with Judge Andy Brown, my counterpart county judge in Travis County. Those conversations started because of, well, and that's another issue we can talk about, the San Antonio Spurs. There was always this discussion of whether Austin was going to try to entice the Spurs to move down there. It's been my conversations with Judge Brown that no, Travis County is, they're not out to take the Spurs to there. And so that's the reason why, as part of a negotiated contract, there's a couple games that are played in Austin by the San Antonio Spurs professional team. One of the reasons why the Spurs asked for that and the county, we've given them permission, is because it's marketing. The Spurs have felt that they have to expand their market to make sure that whatever fans or a corporate support they can get from Austin. And so that is also, we also know that there's a contingency of people that do drive from Austin down to San Antonio for those Spurs games. We also know people come down to San Antonio now more as an entertainment and to enjoy some of the festivities that we have in San Antonio. Vice versa, we have a lot of people, especially younger people, that go up to Austin for the South by Southwest and all those other big festivals they have there. So that traffic that between Austin and San Antonio is going to be ever growing. And so for those that pay attention to some of the comments I've made or some of the initiatives that I've started, was a discussion of rail. And I know that that's kind of a hot topic in a few years past. That was voted down locally by the voters in regards to either light rail in the inner city, and then there was a initiative what they call high-speed rail, which is really still out there, but right now is not really a viable process. But I have asked as a community that we look at rail, especially commuter rail between Austin and San Antonio, as a means to move people up and down. I've also asked the community and the citizens to also look at to south. And that is a dynamic I think I will tell you, I've shifted. And what I mean by that is, I think we've always looked north and say, wow, let's look at Dallas-Fort Worth and what growth they have. Let's look to the east where Houston is, what they call the Texas Triangle, and say, and then look at Austin, San Antonio as the other part. I've chosen, and I've been intentional with that. I think regionally, and I think we should look at things from a regional perspective, is I think the growth is south. And what I mean by that is to look to Corpus Christi as ultimately a seaport that is growing and will continue to grow, maybe one of the largest seaports on the Texas coast, to Laredo, to the west, which is the #1 inland port in the United States. What simply means is we've got so much commerce and trade coming across those Laredo bridges. That's why you see IH-35 packed full of traffic, because we have all that. Also understand that part of the automotive manufacturing industry, our Toyota, is tied to a lot of industry in Mexico. And so, again, I can touch base on that, but there are a lot of things that are happening. And then obviously, I'm growing up in South Texas, Rio Grande Valley. I've also saw that the power of the valley and the border is crucial. So those are things I have brought to the table, so to speak, is the public safety, the public health, and the economic development. And as county judge, I'll be real blunt. I want to kind of stick to basics. When I ran it from a position of we need to go back to basics. We were able, at our second budget this past year, the 24-25 budget that we just passed, we basically cut spending about 7%. We also tried to create a little bit of a moratorium on capital improvements, which is, the development of big projects out there. And the reason being is, we have a new president coming, whether you like it or not, whether I like it or not. And the thing is we have to see what effects are going to filter down. As county judge, I've taken the position that what we need to do is stay focused locally. Let the noise, the discussions in Washington DC happen. The legislature's kicking in. God help us, what they're gonna do and what they're gonna order us to do from there. But let's focus in on what we can do locally. And so as your county judge, I think if we stick to the basics, I think what we can do is best serve you and get the best return on investment on the tax dollars that y'all pay, right? And so it is my hope and my desire is that as your county judge, we just move forward. I work hard to work collaboratively with my colleagues, the 4 of the county commissioners. I work hard to work with our mayor. For those that are interested, that's the May election. There will be a May election. There will be no Spurs vote on the May election. All right? Let's make that clear. But there may well be a vote, but not right now. But at the same time, for those that are in the city of San Antonio, or you have, I think this coming May is going to be a very pivotal time to see what the leadership of the city of San Antonio, who's going to be our new mayor, who's going to be the 4 new council people, and what that brings. So I'm getting the signal that I have used my time. Let me just say thank you very much. It's been an honor and privilege to be your county judge and to be here today at your luncheon. Thank you.
Before you run off, do you have any questions? Do you have time for a few questions for the judge? Got a question over here.
Who is responsible for fire prevention in our county and in our city, and clearing brush and getting rid of the problems they're having somewhere else right now?
Okay, I'm gonna take that last comment of the brush and clearing. I am going to say that there's multiple departments, but the main one for the county would be Public Works. So Art Reinhardt is our county engineer and department head of Public Works. So those are, I'll just give you this, David, and this community, if there are specific issues or problems, let me leave Jim as my connection here, my liaison, so that if you have specific problems that are Bexar County directed, and if there are issues that you want to see addressed, especially because if it is a city of San Antonio, then we are going to make sure that the city, you find your way to the right person with the city of San Antonio. If it's a city of Converse or suburban cities, in regards to emergency services and fire, that would be the ESD emergency 10. So David already knows, and so I would invite y'all to have engaged conversations with those entities too. They are their own, so to speak, governmental entity. They have their own board. They have their own taxing district and tax funded. So those are things that obviously they work well in hand with the county. but you should have direct contact with the leadership of the ESDs in regards to fire and EMS services.
Any other questions? Got a question over here, anybody? I've got a question back here.
Judge, thank you for joining us on a lighter note. You know, I love sports. But I love professional baseball, so I head on out to see the missions, you know, about 6 games a year. It's a long haul out there. What's your position on a stadium downtown? Your predecessor pushed for that for years, but is that dead on arrival to move the missions to downtown? A lot of cities are benefiting from sports being right next to the convention center.
Let me just say, there will be a baseball stadium downtown. Does that answer your question? Whether you like it or not. Let me touch base on that, because the public, because of the noise, the voices, the activists, the people, you know, oh, why are you giving a baseball stadium to those developers? This is just a handout, this is corporate welfare. The reason why, when I first was approached from it, and this is an example of my leadership, baseball ownership came to the county because at some point, the city of San Antonio became very focused with the Spurs. And so they were like, Judge, what can you do? And I said, well, what do you want? Well, we want to build a downtown baseball. And so I did my homework and I said, I'll tell you what, you meet these 3 conditions. I said, you're not going to impose a burden on the homeowner property taxes. 2, you're going to put substantial equity into whatever development you bring to the table. And 3, if you're going to have any public finance, the county, and if you're going to have the county involved, we need to have equity in the facility. So what they came back with, and then I'm going to really try to go as fast as I can, David, is that they came back and said, look, we have what's called a special taxing district called a TIRZ, Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone. It's a special district for that area where we're putting it, which is right at the headwaters of San Pedro Creek, the development we created there, by the SISD administration building. It's like 35 Martin floors and that little corner. And so, and right now it's vacant land. It's been vacant. It used to be a car lot. It used to be, I think, one of the dealerships was there, and it's been vacant. Graham Weston has basically bought up all that property, and through his group called Western Urban. And so the financing is going to be supported by bonds that will be through private investors who buy these bonds. And these bonds will be repaid through the tax increment that is going to be raised when the development, and then Western Urban, through Graham Weston's group, has committed a $1 billion investment. He's going to put a hotel, he's going to put office buildings, he's going to put apartment housing, high-end housing, all in that area. And so we are not opening the shovel, so to speak, groundbreaking for the baseball till he puts in his investment and builds up the investment, because that's the only way that the baseball stadium will be paid for. So no homeowner property tax. It is going to be paid for, in essence, by the investment that Western Urban puts into the area. And then, so the last piece was the San Antonio Independent School District. And they basically had a 2-acre piece of property that needed to be bought. And they were fortunate being in the leveraged position of, they were the last piece, and so they negotiated hard. And so what they got was a commitment for affordable housing, because if anybody pays attention to education, you know that the urban core, the inner core of Bexar County, which is San Antonio ISD, Harlandale, Edgewood, those school districts are not sustainable. And if they're not sustainable, that is not a good prognosis for those families and children. So the only way that those school districts, specifically SISD, can grow is they need growth. They need children and families to come in. So my commitment to the school district from the county perspective was to commit to affordable housing, which means I may have to provide some incentives to developers to do some tax breaks, so to speak, in order to build up affordable housing in the inner core, to bring children and families. One of the things I want to do for my county employees, especially that work there at the courthouse or at the jail, is to incentivize and see if I can provide some type of housing assistance that would attract them and commit to live in the inner core. But at the same time, the school district has a fiduciary, an obligation to really build up its school system to provide so that people do want to put their kids in the public school system down there. So it's a bit of it's a complex issue that what we need to do is, this is what I bring to the table. And that's what I did for 26 years as a district court judge. I would hear two parents fighting over custody of kid. And I would always have to tell both parents, stop. Your fight, your war with each other is hurting your kid. You've got to come up with a win-win solution. You've got to compromise. And that's what I try to bring to the table as your county judge. I have all these voices saying, well, you shouldn't do this or you should do this. So the bottom line is, I made a commitment to support the baseball stadium because it was an economic development project that was good for our community, good for SISD. They basically, everybody has signed off. Now, ultimately, the I's haven't been dotted, T's, in other words, the lawyers are now involved, God help us, and I'm saying that with respect, because I'm a lawyer and judge, but we're gonna have a baseball stadium downtown.
Got one more question.
Judge, I'd like to take you back to your time when you were on the children's court. You spoke briefly about how broken foster care is. Now, we're not at the age where we're going to be able to foster, but some of us have the resources where we would like to help and donate.
Yes.
I know that CASA, when we moved down from Denton County, our Sunday school was very big in providing funds or coats and things for children when they come into the foster care system, they have nothing. Can you tell us where we could best utilize some of our resources to help these children?
You just named it, CASA, Child Advocate San Antonio, their offices on WWY. Please consider volunteering. You may, no, these children, these families need a adult or adults to connect with them. One of the things, and I think I mentioned it, Tom, I use you as an example. Tom made it because he had a connection in the foster care system, which is foster parent. For the most part, foster parents are in it for the right reasons, and they try to do the best they can, but not always. And then we have a child protective services, which I'll say it out loud, it's underfunded. Those caseworkers are overworked. Their caseloads are too big. Much like what happened in the education system with teachers until, we started mandating smaller classes and, and trying to help the teachers and increasing pay. So, the other part is child advocacy. So that when y'all do have discussions of what you want in your elected officials, you should always be mentioning, what are you doing for the foster kid? Representative or senator or governor or lieutenant governor, what are you doing for those kids? So it's child advocacy, it's just stepping up. And if you have no time, then commit your treasure, which is your money. So support the support CASA, Kronkowski Foundation, Harvey Najum, Bill Greehey, all those philanthropists have given money big money out of their own pockets. So I'm asking y'all to see what you can give out of your pocket in order to make a difference for our community. Because what we need are adults. We need people of our community to connect with these families. So that's the reason why I'm going to even push you. Get involved with CASA. See what you can do. You may not be able to do the CASA work, so to speak, and go to court and supervise in a family, but you may find that there are programs that you can be involved, especially for programs that they have at the facilities and being the foster grandparents, so to speak. And so I hope I've helped educate y'all to understand, don't give up in giving back to your community.
You think because we look old, we're grandparents?
I'm a grandparent.
Okay, well, that's all right then.
I got two.
Judge?
They're small, and as I made a joke, they're small so that they're lovable and adorable, but they're at the age where I can go, here, yeah, back, I gotta go. So, I
First
think
of all,
it's time for me to go.
before we say goodbye to the judge, Keith, will you step up here for a minute, please? I want to thank both of you. I'd like to give each one of you a challenge coin from the Ark. And so if I see you out in the bar, yeah, you got to have that challenge coin. But
I never go to the bars.
you don't?
You ain't gonna see me.
Judge, thank you
Thank you, David.
so much. I appreciate it, Keith. Let's give him a round of applause, please. One last thing. We talked about all the traffic and Interstate 35. March, I've got speakers from the Texas Department of Transportation coming here. Second Tuesday of March. Plan ahead. Thank you so much. Y'all have a great day.